Hey, what's good, agents? It's been a minute since we've actually done a deck profile for YouTube. Most of the deck profiles that we do go straight up on Twitch and then don't make their way over to YouTube, but I decided it was finally time to get back into the swing of doing that. So this first deck profile will be for a BlackWarGreymon build. It's kind of like a BlackWarGreymon toolbox build that really is geared toward dealing with ShineGreymon and DP reduction, because we know that for the beginning, at least, of BT13, this meta, we're going to see a lot of ShineGreymon. Whether it will be best deck in the format or not is yet to be determined. I think that people are really going to be looking for ways to tech against it, since we're expecting to see a lot of it. So I don't think we'll be in like blue hybrid Gabumon territory in this upcoming format of BT13, but this is a deck that I kind of put together a couple nights ago on stream to see how it does, and I really like it. I think it's a good starting point for dealing with ShineGreymon stuff. I've tested it a little bit, not as much as I would like, but I want to get this proto version out for you guys. And in the comments, we can talk about different tech options you can put in the deck, what you could kind of change in and out, what you should be looking out for against ShineGreymon. But let me stop rambling. Let's just go straight into the deck profile. All right, so getting started here with the deck, we run 5 eggs. You could, I guess, just run 4 of these if you wanted to, but I run 4 of the BT9 Coromon that provides the 1k DP for your Greymons and your Agumons. As you can imagine, it comes up all the time. Extra 1k is always important. It's nice if you swing into security. It might save you, it might not, but having 1k extra against DP negging is, I would argue, always good. And then, of course, you have your Coromon here, which is just the draw 1 Coromon. I mean, being able to draw 1 is never bad, I would argue. You could, if you really wanted to, for consistency's sake, you could just run these 4 and not run this guy. I haven't had a situation yet, at least, where this was detrimental. It was kind of just additive, because of you guys who have seen me play, I tend to do like a conveyor belt system. I don't know if that's what people actually call it. That's just what I've been calling it, where, you know, I'll build out, push out, and I'll just get ready to build the next stack in the back and just kind of have this rotating body of threats depending upon the board state. So this is the eggs. Super simple. Rookies. All right, so we have probably a standard package of rookies, I would say, for a red base Agumon deck. We have the 4 promo Agumon, gives you 2k on your Greymons. This is going to come up all the time. I'm actually not running any Omnimons in this build, which we'll get to. I think you could. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just struggled to find space. So we have 4 of these guys in the deck. They're pretty solid options. Then we have 4 of the new Agumon from BT12. This Agumon will evolve from 0 on top of your Coromon, so if you wanted to put it in any deck with a Coromon egg, you could. But for this one in particular, it being black-red is great for our BlackWarGreymon when that eventually hits the board. Also, of course, when you hard play it, you can search the top 4 cards of the deck, and it gives you a Greymon or an Omnimon, and it will give you a Tamer with tie in the name, so you'll get your new BT12 tie, which is amazing and kind of a godsend of the deck. Being able to give yourself blocker and 1k DP on all turns is super significant, again, specifically when you're talking about the Shine matchup. Lastly, we have 4 of the Agumon-X antibodies. Same thing. I mean, this is like a staple Agumon card, I would argue, especially red base or not. Being able to just evo on top of that Agumon, search your top 3 cards, or rather play it for free, or play it for the 3, search the top 3 cards, grab you a Greymon or an Omnimon and that X antibody. We do run X antibodies in this deck, so there's plenty of hits that you can go for. Next up, we have our level 4s, which again feels like a standard Greymon package, at least to me. We're actually playing 4 of the 2k buff Agumon or Greymons. These guys are great. Really, I love them because you can basically evolve for 1, as long as you have an Agumon in your rookie stack. So of course, if you just have Agumon-X, you won't get your memory back, but you could do some really cheeky stuff where you push out, you evo for this guy. If you have your tie out, you'll basically be able to do it for free. If you have 2 ties out, you'll actually gain a memory. So it can be kind of like, there's some cheeky plays you can do there to kind of keep turn and continue to ramp up your evil line. And of course, it gives you the extra 2k on your turn, which again can be helpful in terms of shine on your turn. If you're swinging into security, you don't have to worry about, I mean, not that they really play Wyvern's Breaths, but too many things that will screw you over because of the DP negging. It's always nice, I think, to have that extra DP on your turn as well, because then you're not scared of anything in security. Next, we have the 4 Greymon-X's. It's Greymon-X standard card for this type of build. Gives you that protection from bouncing and from deletion by card effect. Well, deletion period. Of course, this does not protect you from DP deletion, so just keep that in mind. It's a game mechanic. He can't save you from that. But everything else, it can. And again, having protection is always good. Next, we have 3 of the BT12 Greymons. Now, this Greymon is an interesting, I don't even know what you want to call it, an interesting card in the sense that, like, I could see somebody taking out 2 and we're just running run. 1, I could see you running 2 of these guys. They can be super awkward, so if you don't know what the card does, you can evolve for 2 on top of a card with Agumon the name. That, of course, includes our lovely Agumon-X Anybody. And then when you do this, when you evo on top of a Digimon, you'll be able to play out a tie for free if you don't already have a tie out. So it's a great way to play your 3-drop ties or your memory setter ties, or really any tamer with a tie in the name. But turn 1, this is super awkward because you have your Agumon back here, maybe an Agu-X. You might have the tie in your hand already, and you have this guy. So do you pass? Do you play something for 3 so that next turn you can evo? It's just, it can be awkward. It really kind of comes down to player preference, and I think really just what you expect the board state to be. And it just can make things strange, especially going first. And then lastly, we have Greymon-X Anybody, Virus, the BT11 one, another standard Greymon card that you should just run. There's no reason not to have this card in the deck. You'll be able to use its protection, but you'll also be able to evo into your level 5 for reduced costs, and we like reduced costs. Cheaper evos are always nice. So that's it for your level 4s. Level 5s. Now this is where you can get as techy as you want in terms of your build, which was one of my favorite things about Greymon right now. I know people or maybe not joke, they probably mean it, the Greymon card game with all the different Greymon options you have that this game offers. But this is really where I think you can try all types of things. So next, we have 4 of the BT12 Raid Metal Greymons. I love Raid as a mechanic. It's really cool. I feel like it's something that Red really needed. So being able to go into this guy, swing into one of an opponent's standing body and play a Tamer is great. Obviously, if you have your other inherits underneath, you could get this guy up to about 12,000 power between the 2K Greymon, the 2K Agumon, and the 1K Koromon. And of course, if you play a tie, you can get him up to 13k. So he has the potential to get up to mega levels of power, which is awesome. Also, when you raid, like I said earlier, you get to play a free tamer. It can be black or red, so long as it costs 4 or less. So that's damn near any black or red tamer in the game. So it's awesome. And then of course you get piercing off your inheritable. That comes up somewhat often in this deck. Not as often as it would in the Raid War Greymon, because in this current iteration of the build, we're not actually playing any of the Raid War Greymons, which I think you definitely could if you wanted to. I'm just trying something a little different, keeping in mind specifically ShineGreymon. And speaking of ShineGreymon, we have 3 of the Metal Greymon-X's. This is basically your Screw You ShineGreymon card. You'll go into this hopefully on top of your metal for 1. If you don't, for 4, it's still worthwhile because you'll get your Digivolve protection. But the most important thing in the Shine matchup is you won't be able to have your DP reduced until the end of your opponent's turn. So there's been plenty of times where that particular card has saved me from certain death. And it's just super helpful. But not only that, being able to trash an opponent's security on your reboot or restand is phenomenal. So you can just chip away at your opponent. It's also a cheeky way to potentially get rid of Marcus's and other threats in security. Next, these guys, you can I'm just going to play them out at the same time here. You can kind of tech these in and out of the deck. We have the Metal Greymon from BT8, which when you Digivolve into him, he'll de-Digivolve your opponent by 1, and then you can pop something 3k or less. The popping comes up every now and again. The really important thing there is de-Digivolve, so you can get rid of pesky things like Ruin Mode, assuming that your body underneath isn't already dead from Ruin Mode's ability. But de-Digivolve is always nice. And then also, if you go into your Gaiomon, you'll be able to swing into a body if you want to as well. So I I've thought about putting him up to 2. I've thought about taking him out. I think this one is kind of your flex spot. It's really a meta call, especially for your locals and what you think you're going to run into, and if you value that Digivolve more, because in the mirror match, this guy isn't going to really help you as much because they can be like, cool, I just can't be Digivolved with the Metal X. So just things to think about. Then we run one of the Altarius mode. Why not? He's an extra layer of protection that he'll grant if for some reason your lower levels you couldn't get the Greymon-X that you needed. There's the Altarius mode. Also, he pops a 5k body, which can be really cool. If so, let's say you go into this guy and he was at a reduced cost, you keep turn, you Digivolve something by 1, but you can't kill it. You can go into Altarius mode, and it's free, of course, and then you can kill whatever it was that you couldn't kill before. That's come up for me a couple times. And then you could also go into Metal X on top of that. If for some reason 5k power wasn't enough, okay, you can kill it with 6k. So there's like fun little interactions you can do with your level 5 top end. And again, I think that there are so many Greymon options that you could try the other Metal Greymon-X, which would give you the +1 security check and the 3k DP, which is great if you're building an OTK build. This is not an OTK build, but I do think you could modify it to have elements of both. There was an iteration of the deck where I had 2 of the Metal Greymon-X's here, and then 2 of the previous Metal Greymon-X and one Altarius mode to kind of give you a little more versatility in the deck. I just found it kind of awkward just because by having so many Greymon-X's, they couldn't really go on top of each other, because at least with this guy, he can go on top of any of them. So again, it's really going to come down to what your kind of preference is, but also what kind of decks are you seeing in your locals. Next, we'll talk about level 6s. We're doing something a little differently, I think, anyway. We're running 2 of the BT8 BlackWarGreymon. When you Digivolve on top of him, you should definitely have some black cards in your source, so you'll be able to pop Tamers and or Digimon up to a cost of 6, which is phenomenal just because it is a nice way to get rid of those Marcuses and just clear out the Tamers, which will be a problem just if you let ShineGreymon, or really any deck, I feel like, amass too many Tamers too quickly, things can get a little difficult. And then also, if you have the other Metal Greymon under him, you'll be able to swing and restand. If you give this guy a blocker and he blocks, he'll restand, assuming that Digimon's deleted. So he's a nice option. I don't know if I'm going to end up keeping him at 2, or if I'm going to reduce him down to 1 and put in a Raid WarGreymon here. I haven't really decided yet, but right now we have a 2-2 split that we'll get into. So the next one we have here is BlackWarGreymon-X, which I think is still a stupidly good card in this format and period. It's got reboot. You can evo for 2 on top of your BlackWarGreymon. And then once per turn, during your opponent's turn, you can redirect their most powerful Digimon swing into him. So you can give him blocker with tie. And then you can also redirect their strongest Digimon swing, which can make for some awkward things for you as the player, because if your opponent decides, cool, I'll just swing with the little Digimon, you won't be able to redirect those. But if you did everything right, you will have blocker with tie, so you can put them in a weird place. But just keep in mind, again, the redirect, it has to be their strongest Digimon. Also, his other effect, if you got a BlackWarGreymon in your source or an X with anybody, literally the reason why, or a big part of why I said let me try this with 2 Black Wars, so that this has a higher chance of actually going off. We'll have 4 different targets for that secondary effect. When this guy unsuspends, or rather when any Digimon unsuspends on your opponent's turn, he'll delete the thing with the lowest play cost. If they have multiple things with the same play cost, you will pick one. Just keep that in mind. I think it's a good option, really going into anything, but even against Shine, because let's say you're protected that turn, they're gonna lose a body anyway when you unsuspend. So it can be a really nice just way to control the board. And lastly, the GOAT Gaomon. I honestly could see the case being made for running 3 Gaomons, 1 Black War, or 3 Gaomons, 1 Black War X. I think that there's a case to be made there. Gaomon is, I would argue, the MVP of the BlackWarGreymon line. He goes for 2 on top of your BlackWarGreymons. He's got Sec +1 naturally. He's got Reboot. And then when Digivolving, if you have a Black Digimon in source, which you should at all times, pretty much, you'll be able to Digivolve your opponent by 1. and then also he has Blitz, and we love Blitz for game. It's great. You're gonna use and abuse that. So yeah, that's your level 6s, which I think you can kind of float around. We're actually not playing any 7s in the deck. I've thought about doing weird things like putting in a Omnimon Blitz as well as a Alter B, but it just seems so convoluted to try and do that. So I don't know, there may be a weird Alter B Greymon deck in the works, but we'll see how this plays out first. Okay, let's go ahead and get into our Tamers. We have 4 of the Tie from BT12. He, again, I think is like the MVP Tamer of this deck. So on play and start of main phase, one of your Digimon with Agumon or Greymon in the name will gain blocker and 1k until the end of your opponent's next turn, which is phenomenal. This makes it so that you don't necessarily need the Greymon, the Black Greymon that gives, I can't remember what set he's from, but he gives blocker to your stack, so long as you have a red Digimon on the board. I think he's BT8, but you won't need him thanks to this tie, so you won't really have to worry about running that guy. Also, when you Digivolve into a Greymon or Omnimon, you can suspend this guy to gain a memory. So he's like a mini cool boy in that way. He doesn't give you a draw, but literally anything you Digivolve into in this deck, you can suspend him to gain a memory back, which can be great for those Metal Greymon plays. If you have your memory setter out, you'll be able to keep turn. You can go into for the Black Wars, for the Metal Greys. So he has his uses for sure. You really want to be able to get as many of these guys out as you can, as quickly as you can, so that you can just keep gaining advantage and make things very, very annoying for your opponent, even if they try to put you at 1 and you don't have your memory setter. Next, let's go ahead and talk about our next 2 Tamers here. We have Yuya Kuga. Yuya, I think, is a great memory setter. However, you could also use the tie if you wanted to, the red tie. It would probably provide you a little more synergy in the sense that you could play that off the Greymon, that you play ties for free, assuming you don't have a tie. But what I like about Yuya is, 1, he'll give you plus 2k on all or until the end of your opponent's next turn, which is great. When again talking about Shine, I feel like every bit of DP matters in that instance, so that extra 2k could mean the difference between being 18 or 20k on your opponent's turn, or 16k. So it's just I think it's a good option. And then of course, if you are digivolving into something of the same level, that Digimon will be unaffected by your opponent's option cards. So it's a cool way to also dodge DP reduction, assuming that you didn't have your Metal Greymon stack or your Metal Greymon-X. So there's some ways to kind of extend protection and really prevent yourself from being screwed over by the fact your opponent can just DP neg you to hell. So it's very situational, but again, if you can establish a Yuya early, you should be okay. And the final Tamer, which I think you could bump up to 2 if you wanted to, is a Cool Boy. Now, I literally have him as a 1 because Cool Boy hates me, and it's probably just a personal thing, in the sense that every time I use Cool Boy, he tends to hit stuff that I actually need to just draw and not give me what I need. So I put him at 1 because still that extra 1 memory and drawing a card is pretty useful. And that way too, if I see him, I see him. If I don't, I don't. He's not essential, but he will help you in the long run. So if you want to run 2 of him, 3 of him, or even 4 of him, I don't think you'd be wrong in doing so. It's just that I'm more focused on being able to build out the stack without having to necessarily waste turns playing Cool Boys or getting Cool Boys out. But I don't know, it's really just a personal preference at that point. We just got to do more testing with him in the deck. When he has been there, it's been great. When he hasn't been there, it's been fine. He's really just felt like a win more, but that's just been in my testing so far. Now we can get into options. 2x antibodies, this explains itself. I mean, you could bump this up to 3. I think 2 is a solid number because you draw and search enough in this deck that you should see it every single game. It explains itself. And lastly, 2 Hades Force. I think you could bump this down to 1 and go to 3 over here, but I have it at 2 so far just to increase the chances that it could be in security. Because I found that Hades Force can really be the difference between getting screwed over or not. I had a game with Dan a couple nights ago to where he swung into security with a Marcus, and the Hades Force was the top, and I was able to kill his GeoGreymon that he just evoed into and break his whole chain. So sometimes that will happen. Of course, the drawback is if your opponent swings with something that has the highest play cost first, you're just going to delete that thing, and that may not be what you want. But really what you want this for is, again, when we're talking about Shine, is to be able to drop it and clear out all their Tamers and their bodies simultaneously and really set them back to 0, having no resources, and you have your big BlackWarGreymon, Gaiomon, whatever it is out on the board, can really just turn the tide in a way that your opponent is not going to enjoy. So that's why I kind of run it at 2, because again, thinking about if I'm running into ShineGreymons, I'm going to need the ability to get rid of these damn Tamers. But that's the deck. I think that, again, there's a lot of tweaks that can be made. I'm really curious to see how people decide to combat Shine in this format. I've heard a lot of people mention playing with Alphamon for the same reasons, as there's some options there to protect yourself from lovely DP reduction. Anyway, guys, that's it for the deck profile. I'll have some gameplay with this deck going up over the next couple of days or weeks. There will be an image of this deck so you can take a look at it here shortly before the end screen. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here, guys. I will see you in the next video. Have a good one. Peace.